hey, this IT band, it's the attachment point for some of the most powerful muscles of our hips. And those powerful muscles are going to be tugging on this IT band. So there's a lot of forces kind of going through this area. And so with that in mind, it's all right, if the IT band is symptomatic, maybe instead of saying, well, you know what, it's the IT band that's the issue, maybe we need to look at the things that are tugging on the IT band and say, all right, if the IT band's feeling a little bit weird, are these muscles tugging on the IT band weird?
Welcome to the Exercise is Health podcast, where we're talking about exercise, health, and the interconnectedness of the two. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we will be coming to you every single week from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health podcast. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie,
and we're coming to you from our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg in Schaumburg, Illinois. Now, at Muscle Activation Schaumburg, we believe your health is your most valuable asset. Your health is one of the biggest influencers of the quality and quantity of time that you have. And while there are many aspects of health, our expertise is exercise. Exercise has been proven time and again to not only improve your health, but also increase your longevity and improve your quality of life. And if you are looking for ways to gain guidance from some of the top health experts in the area about how to increase your longevity and improve your quality of life, among many other things, then you need to check out an event that we will be hosting on Saturday, April 4th, 2020. Julie, tell them more about this.
All the information I'm sharing now will be on our website, www.schaumburghealthsummit.com. The Schaumburg Health Summit is coming back for 2020. We had our first one last year in 2019, and it was such a success that we have brought it back. Everyone that attended was so excited about it that it just wasn't an option. So make sure you join us. It's on Saturday, April 4th from 9 till 12:30. We're going to be featuring 8 keynote speakers talking about all different avenues of health. Now, this is so great because we're going to be hearing from the experts themselves. You're not learning from Dr. Google, but you will be learning from the health experts themselves. Now, also, we're going to be having amazing vendors with great giveaways. It's going to be a lot of fun. Please join us. Get your tickets now. Bring a friend. We will see you there.
Awesome. Now, today we are talking about a topic that, I feel like I hear about at least once a week from prospective clients when we're out networking and meeting people, and we're kind of, asking them about, what they do. And then they ask us about what we do. And then we tell them, and they'll say, oh, yeah, I do this for exercise and whatnot. And then they'll say, oh, but, I have this IT band issue. Or my IT bands are really tight, or I have IT band syndrome, or whatever kind of name or description they want to put around it. It's this idea that their IT band is not feeling the way they would like it to feel. And not only that, but they haven't found a way to make it feel the way they would like it to feel. And this is something that, like I said, I probably hear about at least once a week. It's pretty darn common. Between this, I would say foot issues and back issues are probably some of the top 3 things that at least I hear of from prospective clients and new clients when they start coming in. And the thing about it is that even though the focus is on the IT band, guess what can influence the IT band? Yep. Your muscles. And that's what we want to talk about today, is how your muscles can influence your IT band, and maybe why you might not actually want your IT band to be super loose.
Charlie, you're totally right. I agree. I think that IT band issues are probably one of the top 3 that we hear as having issues. And people that have IT band syndrome or issues usually describe pain in their knee or their hip. And it's usually affecting their ability to move around, do their cardio, do their exercise. And it's a big deal. And again, as we always do, we try to separate the symptom from the cause, or the muscle influence, I guess we could say. And this issue, not only do we think it's really a big deal, but it's also having an issue in this area is probably the way that most people find out that an IT band exists. Actually, before I got into this industry, I was in anatomy, that was my major. And it was just another anatomical place that we learn. It's oh, this is the IT band. This is what it does. I didn't realize that like it was such a big issue. But here's the problem too, is that a lot of people that are diagnosing IT band issues and are working with it, which a lot of people self-diagnose, is they're unaware of the anatomy and they're unaware of what's happening internally. And so I think that's a good place for us to start is like, hey, what the heck is the IT band? Because usually you don't know, like usually people will come in and say, I have IT band. That's how common it is. It's like, okay, well, everyone has an IT band. It's like when people come in, they say, I have SI joint. Everyone has an SI joint, but I know you're telling me because you have a symptom there. So the IT band is a really cool band, right? And it's not muscle, but it attaches into muscle. So if you think about actually how muscles work, muscles attach one bone or a series of bones to another bone or another series of bones. And the way it works is it's like bone, tendon, muscle, tendon, bone. Because the things that we call tendons attach muscles to bones. So it's like the junction. It's like the knot that ties it to the bone. What the IT band is if you put your hand right on your waist and you kind of push down, you'll feel like the top of your hip bone, what a lot of people call. And that's actually called the iliac crest. And it's kind of like a big ear. It almost looks like an elephant ear. If you were like to walk your hand around your side here, around your waist, right around your waistline, you'll feel that like curving giant hip bone. And right on the outside of that hip bone, there is a tendon that attaches a muscle called TFL or tensor fascia lata. And if you keep going more posterior, there's tendons that attach the glute muscle back there. So in the kind of off the side and to the front, the front part of this big ear iliac crest thingy, we have tendons that attach the TFL muscle. And then if you keep working your way back, we have tendons that attach the glute. Now the TFL and the glute, they actually come together. Like if you go, let's see, if you go down your hip, maybe on me, it's 4 inches. On Charlie, it's 8 inches. But they attach into the IT band. So what it is we have the tendon that attaches these muscles to the iliac crest. And then there's the muscle. And then it attaches into the IT band. And this IT band runs the whole length of the outside of your leg, past your knee, and right to the upper part of your tibia, which is like your lower shin bone, right? So it attaches from this iliac crest down the side and into your tibia. Now, remember when I talked to you about like how muscles attach to bones? It's like bone, tendon, muscle, tendon, bone, because the tendon is what attaches muscles into bones. So in the case of this IT band situation we were just talking about, the bone would be the iliac crest, the tendon, there's the tendon, for the TFL and the glute. And now remember, there has to be another tendon before we attach to a bone again, right? So the second tendon on these two muscles isn't like a tiny little tendon. This tendon is so amazing, it gets its own name. I think it gets its own name because it's freaking long, and the name is the IT band. And so the IT band is actually the same tissue as tendinous tissue. And so it actually should, in my opinion, should be treated just like you would treat a tendon. And we don't really treat it that way. Well, maybe we do, but the way we treat it, I don't think we should be working with it that way. But it is like a long, glorified tendon. All it's doing is it's attaching the TFL and the glute to the bone, the other bone that it's going to attach to, which happens to be the lower shin bone. It's the upper part of it. So it's like right on the outside of your kneecap, but that's right where it attaches.
Yeah. Now, if you feel like, hey, you're experiencing some issues with your IT bands, you may have been told that, okay, you need to stretch your IT bands, you need to roll your IT bands. Like, I remember when, like you were saying, Julie, when I first found out about the IT band, I remember it was during a summer internship of mine, and I was being analyzed. My running gait was being analyzed while I was running on a treadmill. And the recommendation was that, well, I have tight IT bands. And so because of that, I need to use a foam roller and roll the outside of my legs. I'd never heard of IT bands before. I had never done any kind of foam rolling before. All I know is that it hurt like heck. I felt like I noticed no difference whatsoever in my running, but I was told it made a difference. Okay, cool, whatever. I have no way of knowing one way or another, okay? And I feel like this is how a lot of people approach the IT bands is we're told that, they're tight or we might feel that they're like, it might feel tight or painful in that area. And oftentimes the remedy that's given is some kind of stretching for it, some kind of rolling for it, and some kind of, or some kind of releasing for it. All right. Now, the reason why I bring this up is not to bash those things because they may have a place, but to take that idea and contrast it with what you just said, Julie, which is, hey, this IT band, it's the attachment point for some of the most powerful muscles of our hips. And those powerful muscles are going to be tugging on this IT band, and it's going to help to create hip motion, and it's going to help to create knee motion. And sometimes it can help create, motion above and below that as well, depending on, whether our foot is fixed to the ground or not. So there's a lot of forces kind of going through this area. And so with that in mind, it's like, all right, if the IT band is symptomatic, maybe instead of saying, well, you know what, it's the IT band that's the issue, maybe we need to look at the things that are tugging on the IT band and say, all right, if the IT band's feeling a little bit weird, are these muscles tugging on the IT band weird? Because the IT band is more or less inert. It's not like this contractile tissue, but there's a lot of contractile tissues in the form of muscles that are tugging on the IT bands. And so what we want to offer today is the idea that if you're feeling like your IT band is not functioning how you would like it to, maybe you need to be looking at your muscles and not at the IT band directly. And so what does this look like? Okay, well, one, we need to think about, again, what areas does the IT band live? All right, it lives kind of in the hip area and then it travels all the way down to the knee. So we need to be looking at muscles in those areas. We also need to consider muscles below that, say like in the calves and the feet, as well as above that in the trunk. Because this is the thing that we see time and again in our office, is that when one area of the body is symptomatic or feeling weird, that's often a sign that it may be having to do too much for other areas that aren't doing enough. All right. And in this case, if the IT band is feeling symptomatic or weird, it may be that the muscles that are attaching into the IT bands, like Julie was saying, like the TFL or like the glutes, those muscles may be doing too much. And we need to figure out which muscles are not doing enough, causing the other muscles to have to overwork.
Now, one thing that's for certain is that our bodies will always try to protect themselves. So here's the deal. When muscles get loose or weak or not working very well or over-traumatized and it's been injured, other areas of the body are going to tighten up to make sure that that area is no longer vulnerable, or to try to make it less vulnerable, we could say. So when we're feeling really tight IT bands, or really anywhere in the body that feels really tight, the question always should be, why is this being tight? Not, how do I get rid of the tightness? Tightness in our body is always there purposefully. It's not like we wake up and your body's like, whoopsie daisy, woke up with some tight hamstrings today, or oops, you're going to have to work with some tight IT bands today on accident. No, it's always on purpose. There's a reason that it's tight. So when we work with clients, and specifically with MAT, with muscle activation techniques, which is one of our specialties here, we're always asking the question, where is this person's body not contracting well? Where are the muscles failing? Where do they have a deficit? What can we do better? Because it is clear to us that your body's trying to make up for something. Having tight IT bands, or having tightness anywhere really, is a clear sign that your body is having to overwork somewhere. And our goal with muscle activation techniques is, well, where are you underworking? Where is the slacker here? How can we get this area back to par? Because when we do that, then there's no reason for the body to keep tightness. Because remember, tightness isn't a mistake. It's an intentional plan by your body. It's there for a reason. So as soon as there's no reason for it to be there, the body generally will relax that area. And the IT band is such a great example of this because, as we just talked about, the IT band is a giant tendon attaching two of what Charlie just said, the biggest movers in our bodies. And they are the biggest movers. They have like the biggest moment to the hip, which means they have the biggest mechanical advantage to move around, make your hip move around. Not to mention your hip is like constantly under pressure, right? Because we all weigh whatever amount of weight, and our hip is having to handle all that. Plus, then we go and do crazy cardio. You get the picture. This area is under a lot of stress, and your body's going to protect this area just like all the other areas of your body. So when we're thinking about how do I get rid of this tight IT band, Charlie and I often look through an MAT lens, muscle activation techniques lens. So we are going to obviously think about, hey, well, is the cause of this issue, are the slacker muscles located in the same area that the symptom is? Because that's totally an option. You might have hip muscles that are not working well, that are causing other hip muscles, like the IT band or the glutes, to have to overwork and thus yank on the IT band really hard, which might make you have some symptoms. But your body would rather have symptoms rather than have a vulnerability, because we'd rather you be uncomfortable than for you to dislocate your hip or something like that. That's why you don't often hear about people dislocating their hips, which is really cool. We also would really look at the knee joint. The knee joint, obviously the IT band crosses the knee joint, so there might be some serious deficits in the knee that we need to address, and that's why the IT band might be really tight. Now, we can explore in other areas, but as I'm bringing this up, I do want to mention that the IT band being tight is intentional. And I almost want to argue that the IT band being tight when it's supposed to be tight and when it's intentional is a good thing. We want your body to be creating this tightness to make up for those deficits that we have. And we all have them. It's not like you're the oddball out, because clearly IT band syndromes is very common. But really, really starting to say, okay, I have tight IT band. This is a good thing. My body's doing something for me. But why? I'd rather not have this IT band. Can I fix that issue?
Well, not only that, Julie, but what was the stat that you had pulled up about the amount of force that it would take to even try to lengthen the IT band?
7,800 PSI, which I don't know what that translates into, but it did say that it's the same the same amount as a soft metal. So that's a lot.
Which, when I hear that, it's like, okay, even if that's just the structural makeup of the IT band, right? And so it's like, all right, well, if your IT band's designed that way, like if it's supposed to be this pretty rigid thing, like is it something that we would actually even want to change the structure of and loosen up? Or is it just that, well, what we really want to do is change the sensation around it? And I know we've talked about this in other podcast episodes, but I think it's worth bringing up again that a lot of time this idea of what we have as far as like, oh, my IT band is really tight. It's like, yeah, because structurally it's designed to be really tight. It's designed to be like the same density as a soft metal. That's not very malleable. All right. So with that in mind, like, I don't know that doing a bunch of stuff to try to roll it out, to try to stretch it out, or try to release it is, one, I don't know if it's doing anything. And two, I don't know if that's really what needs to be done in the first place. Because again, the question is, all right, are you actually wanting to change the anatomical structure of the IT band, or are you just wanting to change the sensation that you have around it? If it's the latter, where you just want to change the sensation around it, well then doing things to try to change the anatomical structure of the IT band may not be in the best interest, but what might be in your best interest is, again, looking at why those sensations are present to begin with. And like you were saying, Julie, hey, when muscles start tugging on this IT band weird, your body's going to send you signals saying, hey, you know what? There are some areas that aren't functioning as well as we would like them to function. There are some areas that, you know what, they're not optimized right now. They're not up to par right now. And so we're going to start to get these tight, these achy, maybe even borderline painful types of sensations. And so with that, again, if you're just looking at addressing the sensation and you're not looking to address the underlying cause, well, guess what? That's going to be something that you have to repeatedly address, and you're never actually going to be kind of taking your body to the place where you want to take it from a function standpoint, from a health standpoint, and from like a symptom-free standpoint, because you're just addressing the symptom. But if you look at what might be contributing to the symptom in the form of the muscles and possibly other things, but this podcast is going to be focused on the muscles. If you look at addressing what muscles aren't working well and get those muscles working better, that can help kind of bring better, I'm going to say like better balance among the muscles that are tugging on the IT band. So some muscles don't have to overwork because other muscles are underworking. It can be a more even work distribution among all the muscles, and therefore that can kind of reduce the amount of abnormal or unusual tugging or pulling on the IT band that's happening.
Yeah, you make so many great points, Charlie. And I'm going to bring something up right now that kind of goes against our podcast, but here we go. I was just thinking about this because I was thinking, how do I feel when I have some kind of issue in something that I don't specialize in, right? Like, I don't know, like cooking or whatever. I'm just looking for a quick symptom change, right? So this is what I was thinking about, because you're talking about, okay, will changing the symptoms really actually, change the problem? And I know some of our listeners and even me, like when I was consuming this kind of information before I specialized in this, in the muscle system, it was always like, okay, well, yeah, I could do that, but it kind of sounds like that might take a while. I'd rather just, get rid of the symptoms, because then I wouldn't have a problem. But here's the deal, is that if you're trying to figure out what is causing this issue, it is probably going to be a lot shorter of a road than trying to just ease symptoms. When we ease symptoms or kind of get rid of symptoms, oftentimes that's something that you have to do with such frequent repetition that it takes so much longer. And that's why I think with muscle activation techniques, we get people that we're like, so what else have you tried? And they're like, everything. I've tried everything. And it's great because we don't do more of the same stuff that they've already done. And really looking for, why is this thing being tight, or why is this thing giving me symptoms? Because really what makes us feel not tight is not the presence of looseness. It's the lack of unbalancedness. Okay. So it's like, if you and I both have to always be pulling 100% for this podcast to work, the best way is if we're both pulling 50%. That feels even. That feels smooth. That feels good. But if for some reason I was unavailable and you're pulling 90% and I'm pulling 10%, well, the podcast is still at 100%, but now you're getting overworked and overstimulated and tight, and your shoulders are going up to your ears. The goal shouldn't be that you relax. The goal should be that I need to kick it in gear and come back to my 50% contribution. So we're really looking at, hey, where can we find the muscles that are not doing their job? How can we get them back up to functioning order so that they can be pulling their own weight? What the feeling of looseness, freedom, lack of tightness is not the presence of looseness. It's the lack of unbalancedness. It's and feeling loose and feeling free, like I can move, it's easy to move around, is actually what we get when we make muscles do their job, when we tighten muscles, actually, because then other ones aren't having to overwork for the ones that aren't working well.
So if you feel like your IT bands may not be functioning or may not be feeling how you would like them to feel, there are definitely some things you can do about it, okay? If you find that you're stretching, you find that you're foam rolling for it, totally fine and well. You can keep adding that in if you would like. But if you want to add some additional stuff in that's more in line with what we're talking about right now, we have some advice, okay? So first of all, we need to start looking beyond just the IT band area. Yes, you need to consider what's going on at the hips and consider what's going on at your knee, but you also need to consider what's going on in your trunk and what's going on in your feet. I'd say one of the biggest things that can contribute to IT band issues is the shoe wear that people find themselves in. And if they find themselves in excessively stiff or supportive shoes, that can actually block the necessary motion of the feet and cause the knee and the hip and the trunk to have to pick up more motion, which would stress those areas. And one of the things that could get stressed is the IT band. So it may actually not even be a function standpoint so much as you're wearing a lot of stiff and supportive shoes a whole bunch, throughout your week, and your choice of shoe wear needs to change. Now, it's more complicated than just changing out your shoes, because you need to make sure that the shoes you change into are actually appropriate for your body can tolerate it and whatnot. But that being said, consider what you are putting on your feet. Consider the positions and the motions that you find yourself putting like your trunk into. Like, are you doing a lot of rotation stuff with your trunk, such as, golfing or things like that? If you find that you are repeatedly putting yourself into rotation type of motions throughout your trunk or elsewhere in your body, that may stress those areas out, and it may cause like the hip and the knee or some other areas to have to start to do more work to make up for the areas that are getting stressed out. And so that can be what is in part contributing to what you're experiencing as IT band type symptoms.
Now, this podcast, we've been talking a lot about the trunk, the hip, the knee, and the foot, and how they could be an influencer over the IT band. And Charlie and I see every single day that they are really direct influencers over this IT band and potentially its symptoms. You definitely want to check out our 2-Minute Tuesday video from this week. You can find it on our Facebook page. And what we did this week is we guided you through a few different exercises for each of those areas, the trunk, the hip, the knee, and the foot, and how you can be strengthening these areas to start to make an impact on how these areas are functioning, which again directly impact how the IT band is feeling and functioning. Please note, and we did note this in the video, that this is not a full compilation of exercises that can strengthen the ankle, knee, hip, and trunk. We just chose a few to give you a little taste, and we can certainly continue to fill that space if you're looking for more and more exercises to work on the function of these 4 areas. Now, the next thing we really recommend you doing is finding a local MAT specialist. You can go to muscleactivation.com, or you can message us, connect with us. The MAT community is a very small community, and we kind of know many of the people around the nation and around the globe, so we can certainly get you connected. When you link up with a muscle activation technique specialist, what you can expect is you go in, and obviously you can share with them what you're experiencing. Muscle activation technique specialists, we're trained to actually look at the entire body and look at how the muscles of the entire body are functioning. So you can expect that your MAT specialist doesn't just look at your IT band or talk about just the IT band tightness. You can expect that the MAT specialist is going to look at how your joints are moving from your toes all the way to your neck. And this is so incredibly important to consider because of everything we've talked about this podcast. We're looking for, why is the IT band very tight? What muscles are slacking off? What muscles are not doing their job? Muscle activation technique specialists, we look for, where are the muscles slacking? How can we bring them back so that your body's not having to compensate for them? So we really, really encourage you to go to muscleactivation.com, look for a local specialist, or connect with us. You can email us info@matschaumburg.com, or of course message us on Facebook or Instagram, and we will get you connected up. But we really encourage you to reach out to a MAT specialist because they're just so thorough, and you will not find someone that's better at the muscle system than an MAT specialist.
So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that is struggling with an IT band issue either now or has in the past? Share this episode with them so they can learn about a different perspective to addressing IT band issues that actually doesn't have anything to do with the IT band itself. And while you're online, if you wouldn't mind, head on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. It helps us show up higher in search results when people are searching for podcasts on exercise and when people are searching for podcasts on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us a 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.